Good morning, Kitsus. How are you guys today? Okay, give me just a moment to adjust our audio just a little bit. Hi. So I know that there's no stream today, but we are on number 2 of the Pokemon fusions that was chosen from the poll over on my Twitter. The links will be down below. Today we are going to be talking about the Pokemon fusion between Sylveon and Frostmoth. Now, I know I ran this poll a little while back, and this Pokemon kind of stuck in my head a bit, so I decided to go ahead and run it again and see if people would vote on it this time. And it actually ended up winning the poll out of the poll that it was in. So we're going to go ahead and jump over to this fusion because I actually have a lot to talk about for this fusion. This video might be a little longer than the last, and I do hope that you bear with me whenever I ramble, because this Pokemon fusion is just fantastic for both competitive battling and contest work. So let's go. So, with this Pokemon, it was a chosen Pokemon fusion to be done through the means of science. It is not a naturally occurring Pokemon that will be found in the wild to fuse. Um, this Pokemon is going to be called Sylvemoth. 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 It can be pronounced either way, Sylvemoth or Sylvemoth. So, Sylvemoth is a ice fairy type Pokemon and is given the title the Entwining Moth Pokemon. So, how this Pokemon works is that its entire body is basically covered in the icy dust that is found on Frostmoth, and it essentially that those icy scales, that dust, it will drop to negative 290 degrees Fahrenheit. Negative. That means that just being around this Pokemon is enough to give you the chills. And if you're not its trainer and you do try to touch it, you're going to end up with some wicked frostbite. So, how this Pokemon originally came into being is that there was a very wealthy contest goer that decided that I didn't know what the gender was until now, but I guess it's a she decided she wanted to fuse her top 2 Pokemon that she's used in contests, her Frostmoth and her Sylveon. This resulted in the current fusion that we see on screen being created, and it ended up being a very popular fusion that was wanted by a lot of people. So, if someone has this fusion, it is either because they have gotten it via this Pokemon being a breeding reject and not meeting the standards of this breed, because it has been bred and fused so often that it has its own unique category now. It's a legitimate consideration. Most people don't even consider it a fusion anymore. But it cost a lot of money to own one of these Pokemon, just for the fact that it requires a very specific amount of care and a very specific diet. Because if you look at this Pokemon, it is lacking a mouth. This Pokemon gets its energy from the feelings of its trainer around it. And because it relies so heavily on its master, right? Because Sylveon evolves whenever, because if you remember when Sylveon first came out, it was just like, oh, only an Eevee who loves their trainer. And that eventually got changed around for an Eevee that knew a fairy type move and was close with their trainer. That way it had a differentiation so you didn't accidentally get an Umbreon or an Espeon. So that carried over into Sylvemoth. Sylvemoth can only get nutrition and sustenance from a trainer that cares for it. It can pull sustenance from the people around it, but it essentially just takes in that emotion. You know how you feel good whenever you're with somebody that you really like and care about, and it makes you feel nice? Well, Sylvemoth takes that to a completely different level in the fact that it literally needs it to survive. So while this is a fantastic contest Pokemon and battling Pokemon, it is not recommended for beginners. Now, as far as the battle angle goes, Sylvemoth is a fantastic Pokemon to be able to use against Dragon types. Sylveon itself was already an amazing counter to a lot of Dragon types, but now with this dual typing, with it also being an Ice type, now this Pokemon is a major threat. Now, something that a lot of people really liked from this fusion ended up being the way the eyes had changed. It went from being wide and bright and blue to shimmering like gemstones. And because of Frostmoth's own gems, the gems actually manifested on Sylvemoth's forehead, where antennae sprout in front of the ears. Now, it is important to note that Sylvemoth, because of its heavy reliance on the people around it, when it becomes attached to a trainer, this is one of the main reasons why it's only for experienced trainers or contest goers, not a Pokemon that's meant to be handled down, is that it does carry over the no mercy mindset of Frostmoth. Whenever someone would desecrate a field or a mountain, this Frostmoth would fly around on its icy wings, and it would cause a blizzard to chase the offenders away. There had been reported accidents of someone offending a Sylvemoth trainer, and because the Sylvemoth was so in tune with this person's emotions, it summoned a blizzard and ended up causing many casualties. So, again, not a Pokemon for beginners. However, because of its dual typing and because of how sweet and just overall adorable this Pokemon looks, people tend to underestimate it whenever they first encounter it in battle. Because if people don't know what this Pokemon is, they simply assume that it is another fusion and they don't realize the dangers that come with this Pokemon. This Pokemon also is very vindictive and spiteful, and it will remember a loss and it will carry that on. If someone has a rival, it is important for that trainer to make sure that the Sylvemoth is aware that Pokemon battles or contests do not determine the worth of the Pokemon or the trainer. Otherwise, the Sylvemoth may react in retaliation and basically have a very violent outburst. So, something else that's interesting is um, like like Frostmoth, how it has that dust and the scales all under around its fur. It is very cold to the touch. It can actually adjust the temperature of its body, making it where it can be handled. However, it so often doesn't want anybody except for its master to touch it, and that even includes sometimes to an extent, depending on how they're raised, the Pokemon that are in their trainer's own team. This Pokemon is very standoffish and aloof, and really heavily bonds with only one person, despite being able to take sustenance from everything around it. Unlike Sylveon, who would use the feelers from the ribbon-like feelers to lure in prey, Sylvemoth really only uses these not so much as a lure, but as a means of attack. It will use these feelers it will coat them in ice, and it will throw those ice chunks at other Pokemon via Ice Shard, or it could even do Sheer Cold. This Pokemon is also capable of flight, though it doesn't seem fond of touching the ground as an interesting development. The wings of this Pokemon are very powerful and seem to, I see what's going on here. Let me see. I don't know why I did that. My apologies. Back on course. Because I can see where my PNG messed up. But no, as I was saying, this Pokemon doesn't ever really like to touch the ground. It's a odd feature, and people assume that it has to be able to touch the ground at some point because it does have a very strong body. It's like it can take being hit. It's not a glass cannon. Sylvemoth is very much a high output tank, and it's very much a special attacker. It would be better used as a special, like, wall or special attacker. It fully depends on how you raise this Pokemon. It can be extremely fast, but it still has the weakness of its dual types. Fire types gonna have an advantage over this Pokemon, as will poison types. It luckily did not inherit the bug typing of Frostmoth. However, there have been some cases where this Pokemon did not, in fact, inherit the the ice typing of Frostmoth and instead got the bug typing. These fusions or breeding rejects often aren't exactly well taken care of, and they can end up being found in the wild quite a bit. And again, this is usually a death sentence because it doesn't have a means of providing for its own sustenance or nutrition. So, that said, we are wrapping up with how this Pokemon appears. Would you take Sylvemoth as a Pokemon for contest or battle, all the dangers aside? I honestly think that as gorgeous as this Pokemon is, I don't know if I could. I just don't know if I could be able to keep up with the upkeep. It's a very possessive Pokemon, but it's also aloof and doesn't want to be around people. It has a very specific dietary need. It's spiteful, it's vengeful. It's a very, very unique Pokemon. That said, who's that Pokemon? It's Sylvemoth. I hope that all of you enjoyed this video today. I had a lot of fun making this Pokemon. It's absolutely fucking adorable. And honestly, all of the cons and pros taken into consideration in game, I would absolutely want a Sylvemoth. But if I were to ever have the opportunity to be a real trainer, I would not want a Sylvemoth. Something I did forget to mention, by the way, is that the antennae aren't just there for aesthetic. Gosh, I can't remember what moths actually use their antennae for. Let me check. The antenna actually helps them keep balance whenever they're flying, and it helps them smell the world around them. For Sylvemoth, I'm actually gonna say that in blizzards and sheer like snowy like landscapes, these antennae that we see at the top of its head, they actually let it navigate through these scenarios and still be able to see. Alright. So I hope you all enjoyed the video today. We will find out how our audio trans works because I'm really hoping that it worked pretty well. I did work on it with some recordings before this a few times. This is actually my third take, so I do hope that it works in pretty well. That said, I will try to do some more Pokemon polls in the future. I might do more evolutions, or I might do more stuff with Sylveon, just because the concepts are really easy to work with, and they're also really, really fun. If you're wanting to catch me live over on my Twitch, I typically stream Fridays and Saturdays at 10 a.m. Central Time. Currently, we're doing anything from Fortnite, Okami, Code Vein. We are getting close to wrapping up Code Vein, I believe. Down below in my descriptions, you can actually find links to my Twitter, my card. If you ever want to commission me, my commissions may be open, they may not be open. Right now they are open, but all of that aside, I'm so glad that we got to hang out today at Kitsu's. You have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye bye!